Hi folks, welcome to this video on EPOC, excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. Immediately puts people off and makes people panic when you start saying these big words. But what we're talking about here is just the body recovering. So you go into EPOC or you undergo EPOC, however you want to term it, when you are recovering. So in between sprints, in between reps, in between sets, in the gym, at half time, at the end of a quarter, at the end of a game, you are in the process of EPOC. And if you actually break down the term, it is something fairly straightforward. Excess, more, post-exercise, after exercise, oxygen consumption. So following exercise, I am consuming more oxygen. I'm panting, I'm heavy breathing, I'm fast breathing. That is what EPOC is. Now, to be in recovery, we must have got fatigued in the first place. So let's just have a look at technically what fatigue is. So, we are fatigued when we have depleted all of our ATP and PC. Now, if you know about the ATP PC system, that will be after 10 seconds maximum high intensity work. So all of your ATP and PC has become depleted. I am also fatigued when all of my myoglobin has lost or basically given up its oxygen to the muscle tissue. So myoglobin stores oxygen in the muscle. When that's all gone, I'm in a state of fatigue. Also, when I've depleted all glucose and glycogen. Now that, those are events that are lasting 2 hours plus. So that isn't one of the more common ways to fatigue, but it definitely does happen. And I'm also fatigued when I've got high levels of lactic acid accumulated inside of me. Now, I don't need all 4 of these to be fatigued. I just need one of these. If I have depleted all my ATP and PC, I've fatigued in one way. If I've lost all my myoglobin, I've fatigued in another way. If I've depleted all my glucose and glycogen, I've fatigued in a different way. And if I build up lactic acid, I've fatigued in a different way as well. So a 100-meter runner, for example, will fatigue because he or she has depleted all their ATP and PC stores. But a 400-meter runner will fatigue because he or she has depleted all of their ATP and PC stores after 10 seconds, but then accumulated high levels of lactic acid because they've used the lactic acid system for the remainder of their event. Whereas a marathon runner will deplete probably due to these two methods. Myoglobin losing all of its oxygen and glucose and glycogen being depleted. So different events, different activities have different methods of fatigue. But whenever we fatigue, we've got to recover. And we call this process EPOC. So EPOC then, how can we sum it up in a simple sentence? It's simply breathing fast and deep following exercise to increase the amount of oxygen in the body to return it to pre-exercise state. Now, you might see a diagram like this, or you might see this exact one in your various textbooks. Now, it puts people off, but I try and break the diagram down and say, right, what is each part showing me? So here, this is before exercise. There you can see the start of exercise. This is before exercise. This is the amount of oxygen I'm consuming before exercise. Not very much, quite laboured. Now, ignore this red line. This square or rectangle here represents, let's say, a game of netball. But more typically, it represents the amount of oxygen needed during that game of netball, the amount of oxygen my body requires to complete that game of netball. Now, this red line here, what this represents is the area under this red line, more specifically, represents the amount of oxygen I did consume whilst playing this game of netball. So this area in the purple represents the amount of oxygen that my body wanted, but I failed to take on board. I suppose you could say the amount of the netball game that you were playing anaerobically. So this is how much I did get on board underneath this red curve, and that's how much I wanted but failed to take on board. And we call this our oxygen deficit. How much of your effort was anaerobic? Whereas this area under the red line is aerobic. The volume of oxygen consumed whilst exercising during the event. That's under this area here. So I've just drawn those arrows on there to highlight that fact. This is the oxygen deficit. This is the volume of oxygen consumed whilst exercising and during the event, in this case a game of netball. So what we've got now is we've got this bit after the graph, after our game of netball is finished, and this whole area here is EPOC. Now, this is the amount of oxygen we've got to consume after exercise to get our levels back down to normal. In other words, we've got to repay the deficit. that we built up during our game of netball. So this is EPOC, and what I could even do here is, if I draw a line somewhere across there like that, what we've got above this line is what we call the fast component of EPOC. And if you've got a fast component, we also must have a slow component. I'm going to deal with that in a second. Now, the fast component of EPOC, what does that mean, right? It means what happens in the first 2 to 3 minutes of us finishing our event. So our game of netball is finished, and we are straight into EPOC, and technically we are straight into the fast component of EPOC. Now I'm actually going to come to these bits here. The fast component of EPOC is what happens in the first 2 to 3 minutes of finishing our event, and it takes 1 to 4 litres of oxygen or additional oxygen to do this. So what do I do with 1 to 4 litres of additional oxygen in 2 to 3 minutes following my event? Well, I am resynthesizing all of ATP and PC, and I'm replenishing all myoglobin. And if you think back to a few minutes ago, they were 2 causes of fatigue, weren't they? The depletion of ATP and PC, and the fact that myoglobin had given of all of its stores of oxygen up. So we can recover, we can get rid of 2 of those causes of fatigue within 3 minutes of finishing exercise using 1 to 4 litres of oxygen. And if you want to really impress the examiner and really impress people, even though it takes 3 minutes to resynthesize all ATP and PC, we actually resynthesize 50% of our PC in just 30 seconds. But then it takes us another 2.5 minutes to get the other 50% resynthesized. But all that is achieved in the fast component of EPOC. All that is done within 2 to 3 minutes of finishing exercise when you're doing your fast deep breathing. And like I said, if we've got a fast component of EPOC, this one here, we must also have a slow component of EPOC, which is this one here. Okay. Now, the slow component of EPOC, as you'd expect, takes a little bit longer to achieve its goals. But what are the goals of the slow component of EPOC? Well, what we are trying to do is we are trying to remove all lactic acid out of the body, and we're also trying to maintain ventilation and body temperature. And that requires, all those processes require an additional 5 to 8 litres of oxygen, and can take minutes up to a couple of hours, a few hours, depending on how hard you worked, how much lactic acid you accumulated during your game, during your event. Now, my students hate EPOC. You know, it's really difficult, but that is genuinely it. I think sometimes people overthink it and try to overanalyze it. Remind yourself, what is EPOC? You are fast, deep breathing after your event. We all do it. It's the posh name for our recovery. And within 2 to 3 minutes of finishing our event, we've taken on board 1 to 4 litres of additional oxygen, and that has been used to resynthesize all of our ATP and PC stores and replenish all of our myoglobin, right? We're still breathing slightly elevated for a few minutes up to a couple of hours after activity, and that's because we're taking on board an additional 5 to 8 litres of oxygen to remove any lactic acid that we built up and to maintain ventilation and to maintain circulation and body temperature. Now, for those that want a bit of additional detail, the slow component one is where we can add it. So, you know, we've got lactic acid. When we react to lactic acid with oxygen after our event, when we're taking on board this extra oxygen, we can convert lactic acid back into pyruvic acid. So if you know your aerobic energy system, you'll know that. That pyruvic will then convert to acetyl coenzyme A. It re-enters the Krebs cycle, and you don't, as far as I'm aware, need to know these percentages, but you do need to know what lactic acid gets converted into. So lactic acid gets converted into carbon dioxide and water, glycogen, glucose, and protein. So actually, lactic acid is quite a useful substance to have inside of me after an activity. I can convert it into 5 things. One of them I don't want, CO2, but I can breathe that out. These 5, water, glycogen, glucose, and protein, they're going to speed up my recovery process. So that's what my body does with lactic acid during the slow component of EPOC. And secondly, what we're doing in the slow component of EPOC is we are maintaining ventilation and circulation. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, we need to let our breathing rate gradually lower back down to its normal level, because I want to keep oxygen delivery high, but equally, I want to remove CO2. You've produced quite a lot of CO2 that's still going to be in your system, still going to be in the bloodstream, and we need to maintain breathing rate and ventilation and circulation in order to get that CO2 out. Also, heat production is higher than heat removal during exercise. So our temperature needs to remain elevated after exercise to allow for a more gradual decrease in body temperature. Our body doesn't like sudden, sharp shocks. So you've been running around producing and generating loads of heat, and then suddenly you stop and you're not generating as much heat. We don't want your temperature to suddenly plummet. We need to be more gradual. So elevated breathing rate allows us just to maintain a gradual drop in body temperature. So finally then, how can we use this knowledge of EPOC? How can we use this knowledge to allow our athletes to recover quicker? Because essentially, that's what we want them to do. We want them to recover quicker. Now, weirdly, a warm-up can speed up your recovery after exercise. And the reason that is, if I warm up, I'm going to increase my oxygen delivery in my blood and in my muscles before my game starts. So we keep saying about the game of netball. If I can increase the amount of oxygen in my system before the game of netball, that's going to minimize the oxygen deficit. I'm not going to have as big a deficit because I had more oxygen in my system to start with. So that's one way. Number two, active recoveries or cool down. So this is the importance of going on a cool down. It allows you to get more oxygen into the system after your event. So it allows you to resynthesize all the ATP and PC quicker, replenish your myoglobin, and also remove the lactic acid quicker, as well as maintaining your ventilation, your circulation, and your gradual drop in body temperature. We also need to make sure we train people specifically, because if we train you to recover quicker, your body will adapt and learn to recover quicker as well. So make sure that training reflects the demands of the activities as well. Using certain strategies such as timeouts. I've played sports before with timeouts, where the coaches deliberately called a timeout just to give us 30 seconds to catch our breath. It doesn't have to be anything other than that. So good use of rotating players, in and off the bench, interchanges, things like that, and also timeouts allow us to recover more effectively as well. And also diet, nutrition. If we can eat the right things, enough carbohydrates, enough glucose, glycogen, protein, it will minimize the amount of time we need to recover. So these are strategies that a coach can use in order to speed up our recovery, and that is everything that you need to know on the recovery process, also known as EPOC. Hope you found this video useful, folks.